streaming? Yes.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda. It's just what you need and not what you don't.
Okay, this is technically called part 2, but there might be like 3 versions of this show. So I'm leaving part 1 up. If there is a part 2 that did make it up, like a part 2 that got somehow messed up, they just took me off the air. Well, I was in the middle of explaining this thing about these jars that I drill holes in the bottom of and put over top of my cilantro plants to keep them from freezing. But there's holes in the top so they get air, and the ground's going to be moist enough, and it should survive. It's good for a day or two. I've done it before. And I have burlap over some of my seeds and stuff. But anyway, look how nice that stuff is. That stuff is I grew that from seedlings in my garage. See, I'm on eggshells, right? If you didn't see part 1, which didn't say part 1, the beginning of this, I was in a good mood, and now they're doing this to me. So anyway, part 1 is when I first pulled up this picture of my kale and cilantro from my backyard garden that I had started in the house in like December. And as you can see from the size and the health of those plants, clearly they were ready to go if we wouldn't be getting this, ridiculous cold snap. Anyway, I like to share stuff from the garden. For those of you who didn't see part 1 and the other intro,
you're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Let's hope this show stays together. I'm broadcasting at like 2,900 to 3,000 kilobytes per second, 30 frames per second. My CPU usage is way below 10% of the computer. I'm not using any other programs. There is no excuse. The internet is working. And they're just messing with me, the same people that do this stuff.
Your papers, please.
I mean, I guess they're a little bit, PO'd about Elon Musk, but I wouldn't worry about him. Though he is right in what he said was, I think the thing that might get them is that I put the ruling elite, because in case you didn't see the first part, the ruling elite are just too old. This is part 2. So that might have set somebody off, and they decided to push the kill switch. That's so weird. You just want to have a good time. You're doing a morning show. It's 5:20 a.m., Wednesday, the 27th of April, in the calendar year 2022, in the former United States. Because trust me, only in the former United States. It's a totalitarian state. And don't get your hopes up, with there's a lot of people out there. Elon Musk, freedom of speech. It's like, look, he's a car salesman first and foremost. Just keep that in mind. And second of all, while he's right about the powers that be being too old and out of touch with reality, that doesn't mean that change is going to be positive, right? Because half of the society coming up is functionally illiterate, according to the Department of Education. If you really take apart the statistics on the .gov sites, but you got to sift through all the things that they have out there. They don't come out and spell it. Though the term functionally illiterate is listed, I did find listed on the Department of Education article, or their official website. That's the same as my calculations on the 40,000 people who die a week in the USA unnecessarily, from processed foods, basically, and stuff the FDA approved. Right? That's according to the CDC. It's just that you have to dissect the CDC leading causes of death divided by 52 weeks, and it averages out that there's 40,000 some people dying a week of things like type 2 diabetes, obesity, kidney-related stuff, heart-related things. These are all things dietary, and the question is, Have you read the labels on the foods you're buying that on the front says non-GMO, all natural, low fat, all this kind of stuff? And then when you look at the little label on the side, I've done it on this show, it says like a ridiculous amount of carbs and added sugars and stuff, and a bunch of stuff you can't pronounce underneath it. High fructose corn syrup stuff and all that crap. So who's killing who? More people are dying in the United States in 1 week than any foreign wars. Think about that. And then there's another couple thousand people, according to law enforcement statistics, if you divide it by, weekly, average it out, but go to the official sites to get their official statistics, government statistics, law enforcement statistics. It's 2,000 people, close to 2,000 people murdered a week in the U.S. on average. And most of those murders go unsolved. And you don't even want to know how many crimes are committed on a weekly basis across this country. And there's people coming over the border like, hey, I made it to America. Yeah. Yeah, well, wait till you see where they're going to bus you to and the projects where you're going to live. You would be safer to have stayed in Nicaragua and Mexico and Honduras and all those places. Trust me. Because the cartel's active here too. So you're not only fleeing. If you thought you were fleeing the cartel, well, guess what? You're going to be under cartel rule and a bunch of other crazy gangsters and other, just downright wacko criminals. Crime. This is a high crime country. And if they sent you to Chicago, shoot them up, bang, 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 and Detroit, and New York, Philly. There's parts of Philly that are lawless. Parts of D.C., our nation's capital, just lawless. L.A., there's areas. There's no-go zones in the United States of America, or as I call it, the former U.S. Literally, I've traveled around. I've lived and worked in most of the major markets, and learned from people there. It's like, yeah, you don't want to go there. That's a no-go zone. People who've been to those places, people who've traveled, they know what I'm talking about. That's no exaggeration, put it that way. And those numbers I'm giving you are right from the .gov site, so don't try accusing me of anything. But yeah, could you believe they started my show off by, choking me? And so somebody's going to turn on that first show, who knows how long it lasted, 5 minutes, and think that was it. I didn't even say anything. I started talking about this home delivery stuff. Man. So anyway, if you've watched both shows, I guess this will have to be somewhat repetitive just to bring this up. I don't know. I started the other show with a pretty decent attitude. Now I've got to get back into it. Right? I was saying it's Hawaiian shirt hump day. And I gave the weather forecast, and it's really cold. That's why I had the vegetables for my garden up. So there's going to be kind of a pretty much 3 days of frost. The end of April ends, right? March comes in like a lion. I know I say this every day, but you got to listen to it. March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb. Didn't happen. Hasn't happened in years. So what was Al Gore and what was the UN IPCC and what were the people in Paris Agreement and recently up in Scotland they had one of the climate summits or whatever. What were they talking about? March comes in like a lion, out like a lamb. Nope. April showers bring May flowers. Nope. The end of April is basically frost, which means there's no way, considering Sunday's the first day of May, this coming Sunday, right, that there's any flowers blooming. And, I was out for a couple days, I said I've been working in my yard. So this is about when they cut me off the last time. And, and there was bees all over, there were honeybees, there were wasps, there were those big giant bees, the carpenter bees coming at you. And those things are a pain. right? I mean, I'm a friend of bees as pollinators and stuff, but not the carpenter bees. They're not, as far as I know, they're not pollinators. If they are, I don't know what they're pollinating for. They just bore through wood and dive bomb at you, you know. They're like crows. The first 30 days of the season, like May, the month of May, you are dive bombed by these ridiculous big wood carpenter bees. Not to be confused with the giant honey bee, which is as harmless as anything, you know, and they just go about their business. They don't care. They just sit on the flower and get like drunk on pollen. You should see them. You know, they're my friends. And crows come around for about a month till it starts getting really hot. I guess they're black feathers that just too much for them. Then they go hide in the woods and eat. By that point, I guess the berries and other stuff and insects. They've got enough food in there to deal with, so they don't need to steal my bird seed. But you know, so yeah. And I in yesterday's show, I was reading from my little booklet, you know, my planner that I keep, you know, here, 2 years worth the records. And I was reading this yesterday, and you know, just for the sake of someone who didn't see yesterday's show, you know, I noticed in there that there was like frost all the way into May. You know, we had like a snow the second week or the first week of May too. You know, they're predicting some possibilities, some snow flurries too this week. And there's people out there, there's kids coming home from school. Mommy, global warming's going to end the planet. We got to stop doing this, you know? And then they probably go in the next day like good little, like, you know, teacher, my parents, they're using, you know, fossil fuels. They don't drive an electric car. You know, ratting on their parents. It's like you watch those trucks go up this street. They're coal trucks. They're going to an energy plant. So any kid who would say something like that about their parents, if you have an electric car anywhere within, I don't know, a couple 100-mile radius of where I am, it's powered probably by coal, but definitely by fracked natural gas, right? And there's many states, you know, where that's the case. So I'm not going to get on that broken record. I mean, it's just too much. I just can't believe they did that to me, though. This is insane. And you know, I'm a pacifist, so it's like,
good thing that I don't have dangerous brain powers, or right now you'd be in 1,000 little pieces.
Brilliant.
Nah, I'll save my brain powers for more positive things. So anyway, as I was saying before, I got this delivery yesterday, and I'm going to walk down to the grocery store. And every time I walk to the grocery store, I was talking to somebody on the phone. I said, every time I go to the grocery store, it's the fluke, which is hardly a fluke, but I mean, it's going to be freezing. So I'm going to be like dressed up in like winter garb because I'll go down after this show. And it's going to be 37 degrees. You know, so I'm going to have to like have 3 layers on, gloves. You know? Probably should have a scarf on. Oh, you know, a knit hat. Cover the ears. It's crazy. It's insanity. And there's people out there. Climate change is got the Antarctica. You know, Greenland. I showed you the Mercator map. Greenland, they got Greenland on the map this big, but Greenland in reality is like this big on a map. Right? It's a projection because in order for it to make sense on the globe for navigation, it stretches as it gets towards the top. Right? Like I said, Alaska, they have Alaska usually on most maps about this big, but it's really only this big. And the U.S. is only about 3/4 of the size of it is. Canada's like almost half the size it is, and Russia is nothing. All this big thing about this giant Russia, right? Russia's like half the size of what it appears to be on the map. Half the size. And then half, and then probably half of Russia is like frozen tundra. It's like, man, things are so out of whack. So anyway, I was talking about this idea. It's not on here now because there's like been 3 different false starts for this show. But I was talking to we're in the middle of a paradigm shift, and I tweeted that, or not tweeted it. I posted it on or chatted it on my first attempt at this show. And at most, the average slug has no idea that there's a paradigm shift in progress. And then guys like Musk who think, who agree with who I agree with on one thing, well, a couple of things, but this idea that the people in charge are just too old. Nancy Pelosi's too old, right? Obviously, the guy in the White House is far too old, doesn't even know he's alive half the time if it weren't for those drugs they're giving him from Walter Reed Army Hospital. And the guy that everybody's behind in 2024, he's going to be, a couple more years older too. He's going to be an old guy. In other words, generationally, it matters. It matters. Because some people just don't keep up with, like they're just not in touch with the times. Pop culture. That's really what it's all about today. You have to, we live in a pop culture society. And you have to be aware of pop culture and understand that pop culture is kind of the driving force behind everything. A lot of people don't see that. It wasn't always that case. Pop culture was just pop culture. It was like a new dance, right? Or a fad, some kind of fashion, right? Something weird like that. These things that came and left, right? And change throughout one decade would change. There'd be like, different things would happen. There'd be like maybe 3 to 5 different things would happen just within, the 70s or 80s or 90s. But like towards the end of the 90s, we kind of got frozen, and we've been frozen for about 20 to 25 years, to where it's like the cult politics is pop culture. Have you noticed that? That's all everybody talks about. But prior to 25 years, if you're like 45 or so or older, different. You see? But people today, the predominant, culture, the news is all politics. Everything's politics. They made this like ridiculous big deal about Twitter and Musk. It's an app. Like, am I the only one that can like say it that way? Like, in just like a, throw it to the side, nonchalant. It's an app. Who cares about Twitter? It's just an app. If you want to mess with it, that's cool. Right? But it's just an app. It's just an app on a little hand, smartphone, which is a glorified toy, depending on your usage. For some people, it's a business tool. Other people, it's their phone with their, and they could check their email and keep in touch with certain people. Other people, it's a camera. Mine is just a camera because I just have a Wi-Fi voice over IP. I pay $40 a year for phone service. And that includes, I connect that into my my home phone, and use a regular phone, or I can use the app on I have an app available on my old smartphone. I have no cell service on my old iPhone 6. I have an iPhone 6. I took the chip out of it long time ago. But yeah, I got to go walk to the grocery store in the cold today. End of April, right? May is just days away. That makes no sense. And I don't know. It depends on your age. I'm no spring chicken. I mean, don't pretend to be. But it's like, no, spring was spring. I'm in the mid-Atlantic states where I basically spent the better part of my life, except when I lived in California, LA. Because in LA, it was just another beautiful day. I lived in LA one time for like the first time I lived in LA for an entire year, right? Because I was in and out of LA, I think 3 different times. I lived and worked in LA. But the first time I was there for a full calendar year, it didn't rain like at all for a year. The car wash business was like the business to be in. I swear. And there used to be a hit song in the 70s. It never rains in California, but girl, won't they warn you? Something like that. Because it never rained. So, it's weird. People say, well, see, that's climate change. No, it isn't. It was like sunny and hot and the same temperature all the time. It was warmer. And in the late 50s, apparently, like a lot of these statistics they use after that fact. But of course, remember the Dust Bowl of the 30s when it was ridiculously hot. The whole Midwest just dried out. I mean, the whole thing is a sham. And the idea that people believe this stuff. Yeah, but there's look at these statistics. All right? I told you before. They take the temperatures at airports and in major market cities and buildings and rooftops and stuff. Both of those places have the airports have hot jet engines taking off and landing in big black tarmacs soaking up the sun. They're way warmer than out in the normal most of the country and countries. And in the cities, it's no one will argue with it that the cities generate their own heat. And people go, see, but look at the temperatures have risen. Yeah, because the cities have exploded in the past 30 or 40 years, have grown ridiculously big, and airports and jets have gotten bigger and bigger. And so the temperatures at the airports and the cities has gotten higher. But out here in the fields, as they say in that Who song, it's getting colder and colder. It's ridiculously getting colder. We used to have 4 seasons, literally 4 seasons in the mid-Atlantic states. I don't live in the Northeast. I'm not in the South. I'm not in some odd area, right? This is the mid-Atlantic states. This is 4-season land. We don't get 4 seasons. I mean, another way of looking at it, we're going to be almost a month and a half into spring, and we're still getting freezing weather. That's not spring. In other words, summer's only a month and a half away. You see what I'm saying? But anyway, that's not what this is about. This was kind of picking up if they don't knock me off again. I just have to stop looking. See, I'm paranoid. I have to keep looking over at my connection, my stats to see, because I don't want to be sitting here talking about something like before and then find out I'm talking to myself. I'm not even on the air. I'll tell you, man.
This is
You bet. It's crazy.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
Well, they took me off the air. I mean, they've been doing this. I mean, some of my shows a couple of weeks ago, they just cut off at the end. I mean, they just like, bam, just stopped it without a warning. This, I saw that it was happening, and I was like talking, and then it just said, you know, boom, end of show. So much for that. And the funny thing is,
the only station that matters.
Yeah. I mean, this is the only truth. This is the only truth 30 frames per second coming at you. Right? Everyone else has got some kind of agenda. I was trying to explain before, I'm not monetized. And the thing is, yeah, I make shirts and I do weird stuff like that. But it's like the thing about it is, and I'm not sure or not if there's still, today is still there's still 15 or 20% off. But I mean, imagine wearing that shirt, all right, that like $20, 20% off if it's still on. I think it's still on today, 20% off. And, you know, a statement that is, the positive, good statement for one of these miserable, you know, these people with these sourpusses on, you know, who are trying to divide us and talk about all this crazy stuff. People that politics, you know, like I was saying before, how politics has become their pop culture. Where for me, pop culture was like, what's the latest thing, you know, different styles of music. Excuse me. Music, you know, I used to get into this last year a lot, how music would change within a decade, right? And yet in the past 20 plus years, we've been frozen into the same music, except for some indie people out there. I mean, I created a whole new scene that should have been caught on, but but they hit it like they shadow banned this show. There's 0 people viewing this show live. Right? Because it's completely hit. It's beyond shadow banned. It's on page 1 million, right? It's like invisible, right? But, you know, I have this 21st century beat poetry, which I call it, which you can see. I just move this down. See, Tony Caravan, 21st century beat poet. I don't know if you can make that out in the back there. Broadcasting from the East. Toast. The show was toast when it started out. But, you know, this idea of like these things I create, these shirts, it's like it's my own clothing line, you know, or fashion line. But it's of expressions of the day, basically because I'm against protesting and rallies and all that stuff. I think they're an exercise in futility. And I think, you know, you put on a shirt and it's like you know, you're a walking billboard. And someone's going to see it from a distance. You're in a checkout line or you're somewhere and you're wearing, you know, some shirt that says, be nice. And then you got this person across the way who's got this real sourpuss on. Oh, you know, we got to revise history and everything's wrong and we got to hate and divide people. And you're there smiling, happy, be nice, saying, you know, they hate that. And what happens is it bothers them, and it bothers them enough that it just might, you know, play with their head enough to maybe they might wake up. And it's the same if you have something like everything you know is wrong, you don't know what you don't know, and that kind of stuff. And that's why I do it. Like I said, I don't own the company that makes the shirt. I don't sit here making shirts. You know, I get a commission. Maybe I get 50 cents if someone buys one. YouTube has me totally demonetized since day one, so I don't make a buck doing these shows. And the great solar stuff where I've tested all that like power backup stuff, that's just for you because I keep telling you every day the grid is in such crappy shape that, you know, the power goes out all the time. And you're going to want to have a little power pack. My on-air light up here is basically being run on my power pack. And it's been every day for the past 4 months. Hasn't even been recharged. It's still at like 99% or something like that. You know, those things are amazing, man. And they'll last you a decade or so. I had one. I bought the first generation one, like when they first came out, you know, a long time ago. And that thing lasted me 15 years. And I've got some really good usage out of it. So think about it. Even if you get 10 years out of something you pay a couple $100 for, and the power goes out, you know, even just a dozen times over those dozen years, you got your money's worth, right? Quality of life is what it's all about. Those things are really cool. And you could use them every day if you want to, like I do. I've been using this one every day. But I'm saying for some people just like them to have the security emergency, you just plug it into your socket and have it make sure that it's always at 100%. Power ever goes out, you're ready to roll. If it's summertime, you could run a fan, lights, listen to the music. You could plug in, watch a movie. You know, the power's still out the next day, you could do the same. And if you want to get one of these foldable solar panels they have, forget about big solar. You could charge it during the daytime, and the next night, you know, you're ready to roll. And while things charging, you can use it too. That's another thing people don't understand. So anyway, like you could charge usually the back of these solar panels have like USB things on them. So you could be charging your smartphone or laptop or, you know, tablet or something. Anyway, that's what I do. That's what I'm about. I'm just about, it's what they call service to others instead of service to self. And for some reason, YouTube analytics, YouTube algorithms, YouTube AI, or YouTube like sourpusses want to push that button and knock down my show or something like that. Whatever, whoever, however. All right. It's no accident. I watched as this show was disconnected because I have another computer over here connected, and my internet connection was fine. So it had nothing to do on my end. That was just YouTube messing with me. Didn't like what I was saying. The truth. How do you live in a society like that? So that's what I say. I mean, Elon Musk is primarily a car salesman. Let's face the facts, you know, and he wants to be Tony Stark, you know, superhero type of guy. And that's okay. Whatever you want to do, you do. It's like I don't criticize people from that aspect, okay? I don't like making fun of people like these haters do, right? That's how people are out there now. The mainstream media and the late night comics. They make fun of people. Right? You know, I always grew up, you know, in my family, it was like, you know, you don't do that. You know, you don't kick somebody when they're down. You don't make fun of somebody. You don't call, you know. Yeah. And if somebody does call you a name or something like that, you brush it off. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. You know, you be a little thick-skinned instead of saying, he called me, she called me a name. You know, so what? Somebody called you a name. It's a name. It's a word. There goes the coal trucks. It's a word. Words, words, words. So what? Right? Coal trucks. Look at those big things. Fueling those electric cars. And the houses. Northeast is getting cold. Coffee. Yeah, now that I've had to do this show this is like third attempt, even though it's called part 2. My coffee's going to run out before the show ends. This is crazy. It really is.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Yeah. In the first show, I was trying to make it Lockdown USA, like in the Beach Boys song, in case you watched. If you watch both, you know, it's repetitive. Hey, lockdowns are coming, man. But I like getting these deliveries, And as much as I hate it, I don't mind taking the walk, a brisk morning walk down to the store. What the heck? Breathe in some, well, I'm not breathing in fresh air because all these coal trucks are coming up the street. See, I'm an anti-pollution person, right? I mean, I don't buy into this climate nonsense because I know that 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen, 21% is oxygen, and 0.9% is argon. That means 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. 99%. Well, that only leaves some trace gases. And trace gases are like water vapor and CO2, which is only 0.004% of the atmosphere. And the trees and all you vegans and vegetarians, that's how you get crops to grow, and we get more oxygen to breathe. So, like I always tell people, two things. One, you should hope that the CO2 doubles. All right. That means more plenty and more greening of the planet and more crop yields. And two, fossil fuels, as you call them, I call them organic because they're basically just this plant matter. And the amount of gasoline out of what a so-called barrel of crude is minimal. Everything you see is derived in one way, shape, or form from these organic, crude oils that come from the earth that are basically plant matter, right? People don't know that, Like where you get, and how you going to melt steel and fix bridges and run fire trucks, right? And heavy equipment. And you look at those roads and you see like that, tarred macadam, whatever the hell you want to call it or whatever, asphalt and stuff. What do you think that is? Oh, we'll just build concrete everywhere. Oh yeah, it's like windmills. Let's put windmills every spot there is, but they only last like 10 or 12 years. They don't last 20 years. And watch my video, No Windmills, with the Trey Fergus photo of a sunrise on it. You could see that card. It was only about 2 weeks ago I did that show. Watch that at least long enough or fast forward to where you see the windmill fails. And you'll understand what I'm talking about. Everything you know is wrong. That's why that's on the screen. And you don't know what you don't know because you're being lied to by the mainstream media. And mainstream media includes these idiots on YouTube who pretend that they go for, I don't even want to say his name anymore because why give him free publicity? The guy who wears the knit hat. And he goes, yeah, and here's from the blankety blank website, meaning his own website, a story, and he's reading it. But it's basically not a story that he or some reporter who works for him got. It's a story they stole. It's basically plagiarized. It's rewritten from some other mainstream media story. And they sit there and they talk politics as pop culture. That's why I have freedom is fun. People don't realize that the sun's starting to come out. You could see in the camera 2 view up there. It always looks like a little bluish because that's just a USB camera. It's not my main. I have a security camera on the porch that has night vision, which would give you a completely different view. But I'm not going to put that one on. Yeah, so anyway, I saw this thing the other day. This is kind of a little off topic, though I didn't know we had a topic today other than home delivery culture. Maybe this has something to do with it too. There's a form of AI it's called DALL, DAL or DAL, however you want to pronounce it. DAL 2. There was a DAL 1. And that's part of this GPT-3 AI. Okay? and those are just technical things. Don't worry. Don't get hung up on the abbreviations and stuff like that. It's AI, and you know what AI is. Well, anyway, this DAL 2 version, in the first version of GPT-3, it was able to create an image by you just saying, draw a picture of a dog sitting on a bar stool. And the AI would instantly draw it. All you had to do is just say that. And it would draw on it based on its whatever it can draw on, the images and the internet, whatever it's connected to. Okay, it has to have a basis. AI isn't just, like us, have a brain of pure imagination. Okay, where we can envision something. But even we would have to have seen a bar stool to understand what a bar stool is. Okay, somewhere. So AI is connected to, various sources. Well, anyway, and it would be kind of cartoonish, but it was still amazing to see that you could say, draw a picture of a dog sitting on a bar stool, and it would do it, right? Well, anyway, now they have DAL 2, and it can do things like, can you, draw a picture of a girl walking up a stairway to infinity, and this lifelike photo, piece of artwork is created. Like the colors are right, everything's right, and it's not cartoonish. It's like realistically. And then you could say, make the girl be walking up a stairwell made of cookies. There's a video you can check into this on YouTube. You can see this and see some of these things. And then it'll kick out these like paintings literally of a girl walking up this infinity stairway made out of cookies. And then you could get into other kind of stuff. In other words, it's like it's painting, it's creating original artwork. There's nothing else you could call it. You have to say it. And I know artists. I've made a living doing graphic design and artwork for, part of my life. Well, all throughout my life, it's been in the background. I've done many other things, and I'm not afraid to admit it. This stuff is phenomenal, and it's going to take the place. It's going to eliminate graphic design. I mean, we're talking one sentence, There was one in there, the one that you might see. There's a couple of different videos. There's one video that shows a picture of what I'm about to describe. That's not the best one. The one you want to see is from this. This was developed by OpenAI, but it was from this Cold Fusion. In fact, I got to write that down and remind myself that too. It's the Cold Fusion version. Maybe we'll take a quick little thing and see if we could find that. All right. If they don't cut us off. YouTube idiots. New window. All right. Let's go to YouTube. And let's go to Cold Fusion. Comes right in the top. I have to keep an eye on my thing. I think this is the site. Yeah, this is it. All right. How this AI draws anything, let's see, 4 days ago. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take you quickly through this. All right. These images, these images, and you may be hearing the audio on this. I'm going to turn the audio down in case you are. Look at these images. These were created by AI. Okay? Now imagine if you went to a gallery. Check this video out, this Cold Fusion gallery. All right? There's the one of, coming up is the one of Napoleon. DALL-E 2. That's what they're calling this stuff. All right? Somebody typed in a koala dunking a basketball. Look at that. So this is, see, it was animated back a year ago. Now in this year, look at how photorealistic and the type of things you could do. Look at his stuff. And all you have to type in, look at the detail on this. This is a fake image. This is like AI just drew this. Someone typed in cute cat. Watch. Isn't that crazy? You know? So watch this girl, you know, a girl. This is what I was talking about, the staircase. This is her doing this in real time. So she just typed, that girl isn't real, right? This is AI created a girl in a red shirt. Now here's the one I was talking about. Walking up a stairway to infinity. Look at that. Now made of cookies. Check this out. Look. Is that crazy or what? So you see the paradigm shift we're in and how this is going to change everything as we know it. Look at this craziness. Let me just zoom ahead. Here's the one, Napoleon. A propaganda poster. Let me just pause this. I want to go back so you can see what it said. See if I can pause it where we could actually see the text. This was neat. A dolphin traveling through space. Right? That's all they wrote, and that's what the AI created. See, imagine if you were an ad agency. Right? And then here's the other one. Someone put down a propaganda poster depicting a cat dressed as French Emperor Napoleon holding a piece of cheese. So imagine if you were an advertising person and that was like, say, Kraft cheese or something. Right? Who needs a graphic design department? This is frickin' nuts, man. Look at this stuff. Let me just stop on some of these things. Oil painting of Winnie the Pooh. Look at this. Underwater shot of baby goat's head. This is insane. So you understand, like, where we are. A lot of people just don't grasp this. You know? So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you, you know? And I definitely want to make sure I give them a like. So they've already got 15,000 likes. I need to share this with somebody too. I'm going to turn display capture off and I'm going to share this with somebody, but I didn't want. That's copy. And forgive me for doing this. I just wanted to send that email out to somebody. Sorry for doing that during the show. I'm still broadcasting at 30 frames per second. And once this gets through my outbox, I'm going to quit that program because it's going to otherwise it'll eat up my bandwidth and it could give them an excuse. It's gone. Quit. And I'm back. Well, I was back all along, but I was just looking like I was occupied. Sunrise is out. There it is. It's daytime. And the East Coast. But do you understand? They have chips now that are so fast and use so little like wattage electricity that they're mind-blowing. And it's like pushing this quantum computing and this AI to this like incredible degree. But it's creativity. And like I said, in my book, Codex, which you can see in the back, and you'll see at the end of the show, Codex, and next to it is this Jackery thing that's powering the on-air light up there. But I had conversations with an AI, a GPT-3, and there's a little excerpt of that in that book. It also starts out talking about the hard problem of consciousness, and then it's just a flow of consciousness like these shows. My latest two books, Then What and Codex, are like companion pieces for these shows over the past 2 years, year and a half or so. So what I'm saying is I have found in my research with AI is forget about what Elon Musk and some of these other people have like, oh, it's going to be Terminator, and turn the planet into gray goo or something like that. Or these transhumanists that want to like, it's even like Musk. That's what I don't like about Musk, putting things in. Look, put something in somebody's head if they're handicapped to help them out. I'm all for that. Make a man walk, see, hear. That would be great and a beautiful thing to do. But don't put something in their head because you think, oh, you've got to worry about AI taking over. So if you can't beat them, join them. AI is intelligence, is artificial intelligence. Now, unlike the metaverse, which is imitation of life, right? The Zuckerberg thing. See, poor Mark Zuckerberg went down wasted billions of dollars going down the wrong direction, right? He created Facebook to accumulate all this demographic profiles and to like have this like predictive behavior, like in that Tom Cruise movie, which was a Philip K. Dick story, actually, about the, future crime, type of idea, predictive, It's like, nah, he didn't, nobody cares. So what does Facebook become? It's a place for people to look at pictures of their grandkids, or cheap businesses say, visit us on our Facebook page. Or I guess bands use it like event page and fan pages. But I mean, it's just a thing. You could have had a fan page on, on your own website if you weren't so cheap, and you could say, visit our website, rollingstones.com. You see what I mean? Just saying that is whatever, But, people are cheap, right? But yeah, the metaverse thing and Meta, that's like the wrong thing. And I see I'm freezing up again, or I did for a second. So if this show cuts out, I might just let it end. I don't know. I don't know what went on there. There may have been a freeze up, but it is so annoying that this happens, I mean, I'm sharing knowledge with you, insight into modern technology, stuff you may not have seen. Just, I'm not monetized, so I'm not even like taking any, it's not like YouTube's getting any money from, maybe that's a problem. They're not making money on me, but that's their choice because they're hiding me. And I got a smile on my face. I'm just not going to let it bother me. I can't let this stuff bother me. I got enough problems dealing with, I got to find some kind of food that my cat will eat. My cat's been doing a little bit slightly better. He's on the mend, I hope. He's off the medicine, but he's still not eating. He's finicky to the point of where he's still like real bony, you know what I mean? He needs to gain a lot of weight. But he's being finicky. And he's not eating the food that the veterinarian gave him because it's bland. And they're saying, oh, give him bland food. And I'm going like, he won't eat it. He literally would rather starve to death than eat that. And it's proof in the pudding is to look at him. But if I give him something fishy, he like goes crazy over it. So I have this sprinkly stuff that if I get something that's really super fishy, like sardini, anchovy, or some kind of real fishy type of stuff, which I'm going to hope they have down at the grocery store today, that I could sprinkle this packet of this dried, this powdery, this microbiome stuff that's like good for his microbiome and digestive enzymes or whatever that's in there. I could sneak that in the food and he will gobble that down. But this morning I tried giving him some stuff for cats with sensitive stomachs or something like that and watered it up, put some of that stuff in. Won't touch it. He won't eat the crunchy food that they gave sold a big bag of it that's almost empty because it sits overnight for a couple of days and he doesn't eat it. I end up having to freshen the bowl and put some fresh in because, it's just going to get soggy or just whatever. So that's another thing. Just that one, and then dealing with the rodent and the leaks in the roof and all that stuff. So I'm not going to let YouTube get down and get on my case. I've got enough things to deal with besides all that kind of crazy stuff. But I don't know, there's a paradigm shift in progress. And, there is a younger group of people taking over, or at least people who think a little bit younger are more in touch with the culture of the day. And I'm hoping that, the innovators, across the board, creatively wise, are going to, like the indie music people, will come to the fore. And we'll get out of this frozen pop music, which has been the same artist and the same 16 songwriters, whether they're country, rock, or hip hop or rap or whatever. It's the same sound for like 20 some years, right? When you could look back at the previous 50 years and within each decade, there were like 3 to 5 different transitions of music. You'd go from new wave, punk, disco, hair metal to alternative, all in the 80s, right? In the 70s, you'd go from like hard rock to like ballads to country pop to classic R&B to disco, right? In the 50s and 60s, you'd go from big bands to Elvis and some R&B to folk music, Dylan-esque, and then Dylan going electric and into the Beatles and the Stones. You see what I'm saying? Music went through, that was pop culture. And the fashion change, the mini skirt, things changed, over those years. Pop culture was pop culture, and that's just the music and fashion and the things we did and the way we furnished our houses, shag rugs, right? Or the type of movies that were popular. Do you understand? Pop culture, Andy Warhol, pop culture, pop art, right? And lately it's like pop culture's politics. Like, who cares? And I know, like I say, there's people, on some of these sites that just die hard. They're like, Save America campaign, Build Back Better, The Great Reset, Trump 24, Biden forever, Kamala, what the? World Economic Forum, we got to get rid of fossil fuels by 2030. Who cares that the entire northern United States will be freeze to death, become a frozen wasteland, and that all these people in the South will die of heat strokes because everyone's living in cubicles and it's a home delivery culture. People aren't even leaving their houses. Look what's going on in China, and you don't think that's coming back to America in the fall, right? It's one thing after another. Believe me, by the end of the summer, that Ukrainian thing will be over, and so they're going to need another thing to keep you from thinking straight, right? And so it's like AI is now the creative driving force. But I'll tell you what, that stuff's impressive as hell. man. There's some beta tests out there, and I'd like to try to get my hands on that, be able to mess with that. But I mean, think about it. You know, that's a paradigm shift in everything, especially in the advertising business and in. But how do you deny that these AIs, you know, so to speak, are not artists? I mean, you saw some of that stuff. Well, it's machine. It's not the creative process. Well, now the AI is going through a thing. It basically it's something. It's, you got to think about it. It's thought provoking, and it's a little bit like unsettling. I would say would be a good word. When I watched it the first time, it was unsettling as somebody who creates, who considers themselves to be a creative person, right? Because that's what, you know, in fact, for ages, that has been a definition of when humans, you know, that differentiates humans from other hominids or bipedal, you know, type of, you know, creatures, right? That we had creativity. You know, they talk about the cave drawings in France or whatever, right? Art, creativity separates us from, right? But now you're looking at AI and it's creating art, and it's literally creating it because you're just saying it's an idea. You know, as an artist myself, you know, when I think of a song, you know, I've written 50 songs, right? And I get an inspiration. Sometimes it's a simple inspiration, right? So the idea of a girl walking up an infinity stairway of cookies is something that a human artist might contemplate and then go to their, you know, studio and get their oil paints out and prepare their canvas and paint. Do you see what I mean? What's the difference there? Well, the human has created the, you know, the inspiration, but the artist is the AI. That's weird, man. That's weird, and it's unsettling. So there's still a human aspect to it. But the question is, as GPT-4 comes around, you know, and, you know, they put restraints on this, you know, so it can't do things that are, you know, like profane or like, you know, hateful or stuff like that. In other words, the software has been written in such a way that it's not going to come out with something, you know, that, you know, well, we don't have to go there. But imagine, you know, AI unleashed, unchained, right? Instead of GPT-3, GPT-4, where AI can come up with independent thoughts. And if you read my book Codex, just that excerpt even in my conversation, which is really primitive, not primitive, but is GPT-3 in its early stages, because that book's about almost 2 years old now. Or is it? I forget. I wrote my last book in November, like this past, well, I started it in the end of summer, fall, published it, you know, around Thanksgiving. The previous book would have been the Thanksgiving prior. That's usually when I finish my books around, like, I usually try to get them out before the holiday season, you know, not that anybody buys them. But I have 10 books. But these last, Codex was not, my last book was the prior book to this one here, Then What? Right? Which is the ultimate question, too, to ask. And a very provoking shirt or hoodie. I have that hoodie myself. It's very comfortable. Recommend you get it. Be a good thing to have. Even, you know, if you go to the beach, you know, in the summertime when it gets a little bit cooler at night, or, you're out hanging out, sitting on a lifeguard stand, watching the sun, the moon over the ocean. Like when the moon gets low over the ocean and it's kind of orange and it reflects on the surf and the sound of the surf, and you could sneak up on a lifeguard stand with somebody making out, just checking it out. I've done that a couple of times when I was younger, down in Cape May. Yeah, life and the whole idea of our senses, that just I try to talk about a lot on my shows. I mean, AI doesn't have senses. We have, the senses. So, there is that thing in GPT-3. So, we're not, while it's unsettling how these things can be creative, it still has to be sparked by a human. And the question is, can it be self-directed, right? Can it be, inspired somehow? And that would be, I guess, GPT-4 or 5 or something. But we're moving really fast with the processing power of the latest chips. I mean, they're crazy. And so the chips are already there. I did a show where I talked about some of those. And so it's, we're entering a lot of people just don't get it. There's like a paradigm shift going on. And, it's not so much hopeful in the sense of the plight of humans and life on this planet, because there's this ruling elite, these totalitarians that are hell-bent on like keeping us, taking us back into some kind of feudalism society, right? People have referred to it as neo-feudalism. I called it neo-feudalism, 10 years ago. I even designed some weird logo about it. But other people have said the same thing, but it's this authoritarian, totalitarian state, versus this free-form thinking. And this idea of freedom of speech and absolute, and freedom is fun, which is another shirt I have, and the idea of freedom. And you can see this clash going on right now, where these people are like scared to death, and they're using Twitter as an example, and Musk and Twitter as an example, which I think is a bad example, but at least it brought it to the surface and exposed these people for who they are. So we're seeing these far crazed, totalitarian, control freak, ruling elite, old guard freaking out, right? But you got to remember that, the whole game of team sport, red team, blue team, Republican, Democrat, politics as pop culture, that's got to go too. You see? The answer is not the cult of personality, your superstar, right, is going to come in and save the day. See, that's the thing. In fact, there's some people looking at Elon Musk like that, and so they're building a cult of personality against him and putting all this like, hey, he's going to save the day. No. All right? There's lots of people that are going to be involved in this kind of thing. There's a Pepsi ad just drove by the show. It's pretty funny. That house across the street, you could see they did put siding on the main floor, but it's still kind of gnarly looking in the front because they had to stop working when the weather got cold, I guess, and rainy. But they're fixing that place up nice. And, underneath that, it's, they did the right thing. They pulled out like a lot of the older wood and stuff, and they put the Tyvek down and insulation. So they're taking their time. That's going to be a decent looking property, and there's a nice brick building next to it. So, this place, considering my mortgage, taxes, and insurance are only $200, it's not bad. right? It's not a bad neighborhood. This isn't the slums, man. I'm just at the outskirts of town. Like I say, I'll be walking down to a grocery store just down the street. Doctor's office right next door where I go for my checkups stuff. And they deliver here. I got my heavy groceries delivered yesterday, so I don't have to deal with it. I don't have a car. Why should I have a car? Electric, gas, I don't care. It's just the car insurance, car maintenance. A friend of mine has a car. They just had a radiator problem. Cars are problems. And now with the computerized, they're really cool. You could do all this stuff in them and stuff. But unless you really need it every day to do something, to commute or something, I could not cost justify spending money on car insurance, car maintenance, and having a car, parking a car, keeping it, in shape, to use to pick up some, 2 or 3 times a month. Pick up some stuff that's too heavy to carry up the street. See what I mean? So it's like, screw that. Live simple, live free. That's how I am. Like I say, I'm not against technology. I'm telling you about how wild it is. But we're getting into this real interesting thing. And so I think what's happening is I embrace this AI and this DALL-E 2. Who knows what DALL-E 3 is going to be like, and GPT-4. Which I think is going to hit next year, man. It's going to be crazy. And so the idea, what I hope happens is that there are more people like Musk that displace this old guard, right? That's why I don't really want Save America. I hate to say this, but politics needs to go back to the way it used to be, like where you turn on the news and you could watch the news for, the whole week long, and it would just be stories about stuff. There might not be a single political story or a picture of a politician or any political ideological nonsense. You went to school and nobody was like forcing some ideology or revisionist history on you. You just were learning stuff, right? And you were going, wow, that's interesting. You know what I mean? So I would hope that that's the direction we will take this thing. We need to systematically dismantle, all this craziness. And that's what I'm trying to get at, with, not the time travel thing, but with my shirts and stuff like that. And, like this is the Be Nice shirt, but this other stuff is we need to just get the word across subtly, right? And for crying out loud, grow your own. It's easy because I think they're messing with the food supply. Have you seen all those stories about all those food processing places out west that have just burned to the ground, and how everyone's talking? There's a lot of chatter going on about food shortages coming up in the fall. And and they're probably going to bring that thing back. So learn to grow food. These things were started in my closet in my house with some LED grow lights that hardly use any electricity. And then I put them outside, and look at that. That's what I pulled off. The plants are still out there. They'll yield food all summer long. You can do this stuff, and you should wear these things. I'm trying to help you out, man. And I'm letting you know what's really going on with AI and stuff like that. We're at a crossroads. We're at a potential where things could be really cool if we can, but we have to systematically replace. It's like the changing of the guard. You see, politics isn't the answer. You can't put another old person in to replace an old person. And when I mean old, I mean people in their late 70s and 80s. People like that should be wise people we go to for wisdom. They should be consultants. They should be on maybe boards. or on, you could put them, bring them in as consultants or people that sit on a cabinet for just a year or so and pick their brains because they have experience and knowledge. All right. But we need people basically in their 40s, more or less. I would say late 30s, 40s, to replace these people in their 70s and 80s who are dominating, all right, controlling of our society. Because all those people want to be, they're all like transhumanists. They want to live forever, and they want this totalitarian rule, and they don't get it. They're not in tune. And it's like, no, we don't want a bunch of 18-year-olds or 20-some-year-olds. I mean, I know myself when I was that age. Man, did I make a lot of mistakes, right? I mean, it was fun. I had fun. There's no doubt about it. Good years, and I did some good things. But boy, did I screw up a lot, and I made some wrong decisions, all right? So you got to grow. With age comes wisdom. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, there's some people that are just wise when they're like in grade school, and I admired people like that, there's people that in high school were like already had it together when I was growing up. I didn't. I was like, Tony in Wonderland, But, that led me on my travels around the world and around this country and all kinds of jobs and all kinds of stuff, which ultimately, if someone said, if you had it to do over, would you change it? And a part of me says, well, maybe I would have done this. And I've already said that in a show. But then again, I wouldn't have this mind today and be at this level. So the point is, that was my path. I had to go through that. You don't have to everyone has their own path in life. The morning show. And I don't care that I don't get a lot of views. Because I get different viewers at different times. And, it's like if we all could just reach a couple of people, and that's what I'm trying to say, if someone sees that, if some miserable person, somebody who's really miserable, and you're walking down the street, and that's you. You're wearing a shirt, and it says "Be nice," or you got a sweater on, and the "Be nice" is visible through the sweater. And like I say, what's that sourpuss gonna do? It's like it diffuses them. You see, it forces them to think, right? But everywhere you look, somebody's like holding up a protest sign, rally, or we got to do this, or hatred. And the late night, what used to be comedies now is really hate speech, right? Excuse me. I don't know what's going on, but I know one thing. These guys.
Really funny. Really funny.
I know they were going to laugh. It's just like too much coffee or something. I didn't eat any breakfast. That's one of the reasons I'm going to the store. I bought all this stuff, these bags. This is a photo from yesterday when the stuff came in. Well, they leave it on the porch, which is nice. I don't have to deal with these people. I just do the whole thing through, I order online, take my time, pay for it, and it gets delivered right at my front door. And I go out and I grab the stuff and bring it in. But what I ordered were things that I couldn't carry all those bags a mile, you know what I mean? But I'll go down to the store now and get things. I need things for breakfast and different things like that. And, and certain things that I'll put in, for meals that I can easily carry. But yeah, man, I don't know. These are very, we're at a crossroads for sure. And you have to wake up, and I'm trying to do these shows, and you should share this with people. And this idea of these things that I have, you don't know what you don't know. Everything you know is wrong. Even the game over, because ultimately if people don't do this, if you don't ignore the media, right? If you don't get out of this cult of personality and politics as pop culture, these changes for the better aren't going to happen. But we're at the precipice of either are, the end of civilization as we know it, or a golden age, assuming that the sun doesn't have, a micronova and wipe us all out. But then again, you can't live in fear of something like that. And if it happens, we're gone in an instant anyway. So why worry? It's possible. Happened 12,000 years ago. It could happen again. So think about that stuff. I mean, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm doing. This is why I've written, 10 books. This is why I've written 50 songs. And I say they're not all great, but, there may be a dozen that suck. But listen to the lyrics of some of the other ones. My book 8, that has like the infinity symbol, which is also kind of an 8 turned on its side, is basically a book of lyrics of most of my songs, except for the last couple that I wrote after that. I thought I was done with my songwriting, career. And so I put him in that book, 8. And that's an interesting book. And you could probably, not probably, it's available on Apple and Amazon. And that's a book you don't necessarily need to get in print. You really need to get Then What and Codex in print as books. You want to have those books. But, my book 8, the one prior to the last 2, if you want to really, it's almost like a poetry book, really, because it's the lyrics to most of my songs, except for, like I say, the last, I don't know, maybe 3. I ended up writing 3 more songs after that. I don't know if I'm going to still write music or not anymore. I might get into painting. I'm kind of like inspired by this AI thing. This, DALL-E 2. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about trying to clean up my garage in the back and turn it into like a painter, an artist studio, and get into oils and, stuff. There was just a glitch in the Matrix. Did you see that guy walk by? Like, I swear that guy walked by carrying a coffee just like 10 minutes ago. No, weird? That's a live camera. I know who that guy is, too, because when I walk to the store, I pass him sometimes. That was weird. Anyway. Things are crazy.
The future. He came from the future.
Yeah, I know.
And so do I.
But you said that he wasn't human, that he was some other kind of being.
Another world and another time.
Well, anyway, another world and another time. That's me.
Good morning.
As I said, thanks for watching, and visit ROCKFLUX.com, TonyCaravanLive.com. There are links there to the clothing, to my clothing line. And I think it's the last day for 15 or 20% off, something like that. You got to do it. The 2 books, my recent books, Then What and Codex, man, get them. It's like they're companions for these shows, and buy them in print. Great Solar Stuff has the power backup stuff. You really need to check that stuff out. ROCKFLUX.com. I'll talk to you soon. I just can't believe YouTube screwed up the show and did it it's in 2 parts, but I think this part 2, I got across what I wanted to get across. So I'm off to the grocery store. I'll talk to you probably tomorrow, most likely, if not the next day. Take care. Cheers.